The first sign was a door that would not close. It was the door to the laundry room in a 4-bedroom house in suburban Atlanta, built in 2007 by a regional builder that no longer exists. The Pearson family had owned the home for 9 years. She was a pediatric nurse who worked 12-hour shifts at the Children's Hospital downtown. He drove a delivery route for a regional bakery, leaving the house at 4 in the morning and returning by 2 in the afternoon. They had 3 kids in elementary school, a mortgage they were halfway through paying, and no idea that the entire weight of their home was resting on a piece of wood that was already gone. In March of the 9th year, the laundry room door stopped closing. She thought the door had warped from humidity. She shaved a 1/4 inch off the bottom with a hand plane, and the door closed again for about 3 weeks. By June, the kitchen tile had a hairline crack running from the refrigerator to the back wall. He thought the tile had cracked from a dropped pan and put it on the list of things to fix in the spring. By September, the front door no longer latched without a hard pull. By October, the kids had started complaining that their bedroom doors made a scraping sound when they opened them. That was the week she called the structural engineer. The engineer arrived on a Thursday morning. He spent 40 minutes walking the house with a level and a flashlight before he asked permission to open a section of drywall in the garage. He found nothing where there should have been a 6x6 pressure-treated beam. Not rotten wood, not cracked wood, nothing. The sill plate had turned to dust. The repair quote arrived 3 days later. $78,000 to lift the house, replace the sill plate, sister the studs that had begun to drop, and re-anchor the framing to the foundation. The mistake that caused this had cost the original builder in 2007 exactly $2.40 per linear foot. This is one of 73 documented construction failures in the American Homeowners Field Guide, linked in the first line of the description below this video. I am going to come back to that in a moment. First, I want you to understand exactly what a sill plate is, why yours might already be failing, and why no one in the construction industry has any incentive to tell you. The sill plate is the piece of wood that sits directly on top of your concrete foundation. Every wall in your house, every floor joist, every roof rafter, every pound of weight in your home travels down through the framing and lands on the sill plate before it transfers to the concrete. It is the single most important piece of wood in your entire house. It is also the only piece of wood in your entire house that is in permanent direct contact with concrete. And concrete, in every climate in America, holds moisture. It pulls water from the ground. It pulls water from humid air. It pulls water from rain that lands within 3 feet of the foundation. That moisture moves into anything that touches the concrete, including the wood sitting on top of it. This is not a defect. This is physics. The construction industry has known about it for over 100 years. The International Residential Code, Section R317.1.2, requires that any wood in direct contact with concrete must be pressure-treated lumber-rated for ground contact. Ground contact rating, not above-ground rating. The 2 ratings look identical at the lumberyard. Same color, same green tint, same stamp that says treated. The difference is the amount of preservative chemical forced into the wood under pressure. Above-ground rated lumber has roughly 0.25 pounds of preservative per cubic foot. Ground contact rated lumber has roughly 0.40 pounds per cubic foot. The difference in cost at any Home Depot or Lowe's in America is approximately $2.40 per linear foot of 6x6. The above-ground stuff lasts about 5 to 8 years in direct contact with concrete before the preservative breaks down and the wood begins to rot from the inside. The ground contact stuff lasts 30 to 50 years, and the labels on the 2 products are nearly identical. The American Wood Protection Association, which sets the standards every lumberyard in America is supposed to follow, classifies these 2 grades as Use Category 3B and Use Category 4A. Use Category 3B is rated for above-ground exterior use with quick water runoff. Decking boards, fence pickets, joists that are protected from standing moisture. Use Category 4. A is rated for ground contact and fresh water exposure. Sill plates, posts set in concrete, beams that touch the ground. Every piece of treated lumber sold in the United States is supposed to carry a stamp identifying its use category. The stamp is the size of a postage stamp. It is printed in faded gray ink on the side of the board. It is almost impossible to read once the board is installed and covered with siding or drywall. The Pearson family's builder bought the cheaper grade. He nailed it down. He covered it with the bottom plate of the wall framing within 48 hours. By the time the inspector walked through, the stamp was no longer visible. The inspector trusted the builder. The builder saved $140. The Pearson family's builder, in 2007, used the cheaper grade. He saved approximately $140 on the entire sill plate of the house. The repair quote 9 years later was $78,000. Pause for 15 seconds. What you just learned about the Pearson family is failure number 29 in the American Homeowner's Field Guide. 73 documented failures. Sill plate rot from wrong grade pressure treated lumber. Foundation slabs poured without vapor barriers. Joist hangers installed with the wrong fasteners. Roof flashing improvised with caulk where metal was required. Stucco walls built without weep screeds. Each failure with the exact product name, the cost of materials at Home Depot or Lowe's, the building code section that was violated, and the contractor markup they charged. The field guide is $27. The repair on the failure you just heard about cost this family $78,000. The link is the first line in the description below. 1. Access. Permanently. Now back to what the engineer found when he opened the next wall in the Pearson home. What he found in the second wall was worse. The sill plate on the front of the house had not just rotted. It had been partially eaten by carpenter ants who had moved into the soft wood after the preservative failed. Carpenter ants do not eat wood the way termites do. They tunnel through it to build galleries for their colony. The wood they remove gets carried out and dropped as fine sawdust at the entrance of the gallery. The Pearsons had been sweeping that sawdust out of the corner of their garage for 2 years. They thought it was dust from the unfinished concrete floor. They had never thought to ask why dust was appearing in the same exact corner every week. The ant colony had then moved up into the wall studs. The studs themselves were still structurally sound, but the bottom 3 inches of every stud on the front wall of the house was hollow. The engineer marked 17 studs that needed to be sistered. He marked 4 sections of subfloor that had begun to sag. He marked the entire front porch ledger for replacement because the ledger had been bolted into the same rotted sill plate. And then he asked the question that the Pearsons had not thought to ask. He asked when they had last had a termite inspection. They had one every year. Same company, same inspector. 9 years in a row. The inspector had never opened a single wall. The inspector had never tested the sill plate with a probe. The inspector had walked the perimeter of the house with a flashlight, looked at the visible portions of the foundation, and checked a box on a form. The Pearsons had paid $120 a year for that inspection. For 9 years, over $1,000 total. The inspector had been looking for live termites. He had not been looking for the rot that would have invited the carpenter ants in the first place. This is not malpractice. This is the standard of the industry. The pest inspection industry in America generates approximately $7 billion a year. The cost of a probe test on a sill plate, performed by a competent inspector, takes approximately 4 minutes per access point and adds $0 to the cost of materials. There is no profit margin in teaching homeowners that the 4-minute probe test would have caught the failure in year 3 instead of year 9. There is enormous profit in the $78,000 repair. The system is not broken. The system is working exactly as it was designed. One more reminder before we get into the technical autopsy. 73 documented failures in the American Homeowner's Field Guide. The link is in the first line of the description. $27. The Pearson family would have given everything they owned for this information 1 year before the laundry room door stopped closing. You have it now. Use it tonight, not next week. Now I want to walk you through exactly how to inspect your own sill plate this weekend, with no special tools and no contractor. The first thing you need to understand is where to look. The sill plate sits on top of the foundation wall, directly under the bottom edge of the exterior wall framing. In a house with a basement, you can see it from inside the basement, along the top of every concrete wall. It is the horizontal piece of wood, usually a 2x6 or a 6x6, that the wall studs are nailed into from above. In a house with a crawl space, you access it by going under the house with a flashlight and a screwdriver. Wear coveralls. Wear safety glasses. Bring a second flashlight. The crawl space is where the failure happens fastest because the humidity is highest there. In a house built on a slab, the sill plate is hidden behind the bottom plate of the interior wall, and you access it by removing a small section of baseboard and drywall in a closet or utility room, where the cosmetic damage will not matter. A 4-inch by 4-inch inspection hole is enough. The tool you need is a regular flathead screwdriver. That is it. No moisture meter, no infrared camera, no special probe. A $4 screwdriver from any hardware store in America. Press the tip of the screwdriver into the wood with moderate pressure. Not hard, just firm. The same pressure you would use to push a thumbtack into a corkboard. Healthy pressure treated lumber rated for ground contact will resist the screwdriver completely. The tip will not penetrate more than about 1/16 of an inch. Lumber that was the wrong grade from the start, but is still in early failure, will accept the screwdriver like soft cheese. The tip will sink in a 1/4 inch or more with moderate pressure. Completely failed pressure-treated lumber will allow the screwdriver to push through the entire thickness of the board with almost no resistance. If you can push the screwdriver through a 6x6 sill plate without bracing your other hand against the foundation, that wood is structurally gone. If the screwdriver sinks in more than 1/8 of an inch anywhere along the sill plate, you have a problem that is going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars unless you address it now. Test every 3 feet along the entire perimeter of the foundation. Pay special attention to the corners. Pay special attention to anywhere a downspout discharges within 6 feet of the house. Pay special attention to anywhere the ground slopes toward the foundation instead of away from it. Pay special attention to anywhere a hose bib drips, or a sprinkler hits the foundation, or a flower bed has been mulched right up against the wall. The areas with the most water exposure will fail first. Always. Without exception. While you are down there, check for the second sign. Sawdust. Not piles of it. Just a fine dusting on top of the foundation, or in the corners of the basement, or on the dirt of a crawl space under any of the sill plate sections. Fine sawdust on top of the concrete is the calling card of carpenter ants who have already moved in. The sawdust is light brown, almost the color of cinnamon, and it accumulates in the same spot every week even after you sweep it. That is how the Pearsons missed it. They swept it. It came back. They swept it again. They never asked where it was coming from. If you see sawdust, your sill plate is already past the point where preservative chemistry can save it. The wood is soft enough that insects are working it. That is the year 5 to year 8 stage. The repair is still in the $10,000 to $20,000 range at that point. After year 8, you start losing structural capacity. The studs begin to drop. The drywall begins to crack. The doors stop closing. That is when the Pearson family discovered the problem. They were in year 9. The repair was $78,000. If you find a failing sill plate this weekend, you have 3 options, and only 3. Option 1. You replace the sill plate yourself. This is not realistic for 95% of homeowners. It requires lifting the house with hydraulic jacks, removing the rotted wood without dropping the framing, installing the new ground contact rated sill plate, and re-anchoring the framing with new anchor bolts and washers. Do not attempt this without a structural engineer involved. Option 2. You hire a foundation specialist immediately. Get 3 quotes. The honest range for sill plate replacement, depending on linear footage and access, is $12,000 to $40,000. Anything above $40,000 for a single-story home should trigger a 4th quote. Option 3. You sell the house and disclose the failure. In most states, you are legally required to disclose known structural defects. Failing to disclose creates personal liability that follows you for years. There is no fourth option. There is no patch. There is no caulk. There is no spray treatment that restores rotted pressure-treated lumber. Now I want to connect what happened to the Pearsons to the broader pattern. The sill plate failure in Atlanta. The slab failure in Dallas I covered 3 weeks ago. The deck collapse in Tucson I covered last month. The roof flashing failure in Minneapolis from the first video on this channel. All 4 follow the same exact playbook. A construction decision that cost the original builder less than $200 to do correctly. A homeowner who had no way to know what to look for and no way to inspect what had been covered up within 48 hours of the mistake being made. An inspector who was paid to check a box, not to actually inspect. A contractor who either did not know the code or knew it and saved the money anyway, betting correctly that the failure would not surface until long after the warranty expired and the business had been dissolved. And a repair bill that arrives anywhere from 5 to 20 years later, when the original builder is gone and the warranty has expired and there is no one left to hold accountable. The builder who built the Pearson house dissolved his company in 2015. He had built 147 homes in the Atlanta metro area between 2004 and 2014. The Pearsons have no legal recourse against him. None of the other 146 families do either. There are 69 more failures just like this in the field guide. I want to be clear about what the field guide is and what it is not. It is not a replacement for a licensed structural engineer when your home shows active signs of foundation movement. It is not a replacement for a licensed pest control professional when you have an active infestation. It is not legal advice for suing a contractor or a previous owner. What it is the inspection knowledge that 19 out of 20 American homeowners do not have, and that 90% of contractors and inspectors will never volunteer. Use it to know what to look for. Use it to know when the screwdriver test means you can wait 6 months and when it means you need to call a structural engineer this week. Use it to stop being the person who gets the $78,000 invoice. If you are not the homeowner yet, if you are about to buy a house, the field guide tells you exactly what to demand from the seller before you sign anything. You demand a sill plate inspection performed by a structural engineer, not a general home inspector. The cost ranges from $300 to $600 depending on the region. The seller pays for it, or you walk away from the deal. A general home inspector in America spends an average of 2.5 hours inside the house. Of those 2.5 hours, the inspector spends approximately 4 minutes looking at any portion of the sill plate, and almost always from a single access point. That is not an inspection. That is a formality. A structural engineer hired specifically to test the sill plate will probe every accessible foot of it with the same screwdriver test you just learned. He will write a report that is admissible in court if the seller misrepresented the condition. $300 to find out before you sign whether you are buying a house or buying a $78,000 repair bill. There are 3 more failures I could not fit in this video. Window flashing absent behind vinyl siding. Stucco walls built without weep screeds. Crawl space dirt floors with no vapor barrier underneath. They are in the pinned comment below this video, with the contractor markup and the real material cost for each one. Click the comment now and read them before you close this tab. You have 2 options when this video ends. Option 1. You close the tab. You go back to whatever you were doing before. You hope that the home you live in is not one of the 73. You hope that the contractor who built or remodeled your home was the rare one who used the right grade. You hope that your inspector was the rare one who actually looked. Option 2. You click the link in the description. You download the field guide. You read Chapter 4 tonight, the chapter on sill plate and foundation interface failures. Tomorrow morning, you go down to your basement or your crawl space with a flathead screwdriver, and you spend 20 minutes finding out whether your house is the next Pearson house. The contractor is not coming back to fix what he did in 2007. The inspector is not going to call you. The builder went out of business in 2015. The only person who is going to protect your home from this failure is you, starting tonight. With the link in the first line of the description, this channel investigates 1 construction failure per week. If you own a home in America, you need to be here. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The next investigation might be about the exact failure happening under your floor right now. What they built, what they hid, what you need to know now.